I started drawing as soon as I could pick up a pencil. It was always the thing that I was good at. And it was always something that I enjoyed doing. I was lucky. My parents put me in some like classes at a local community center, starting when I was probably in like 3rd grade or so. And that was something that really helped me start to develop some of my skills.
I was always interested in art, and my mother really cultivated that. She would take me to art museums. She would get me art lessons. So she really, at a very young age, junior high school even, was investing in me getting art instructions.
Yeah, so I will say that I was always interested in the arts, and my mother, and knowing that I was very much a drawer, wanted to doodle all the time, definitely signed me up for quite a few art programs. So I believe every summer I went to this fashion design camp, which was kind of like the first entry point usually for girls who are interested in art. You take a fashion design class. I didn't like making clothes. I just liked drawing them.
I was in dance class at a very young age, though I could not dance. I still can't dance. But my parents started me out in dance very young. I sang on the choir at church. I went to a preschool that had a lot of arts. So I was singing, and performing and on stage.
My first encounters with art and the most important art making I've ever made was at home with my family. So my dad was a singer as well. So we sang in the house a lot. We listened to records together and talked about them. In our house, if you couldn't talk about music, basically sit down and shut up.
I've been a photographer for a minute, but in terms of filmmaking, that started like my freshman year. I went to City Neighbors High School, and I had a history class about the Harlem Renaissance, and they were teaching, about the history and stuff. And I stumbled upon this filmmaker named Oscar Michaud, and the assignment was to emulate the works of that person, and so I had to make a film. It's not up anywhere, but it's like a silent film, and that's when I really started to fall in love with the media.
I didn't have art in high school. At that time, my parents could not afford for their kids to go to college. My mother, it was me and my brother, and she was just like, I need y'all to develop a skill, because whatever skill you develop in 9th grade, whatever you want to do, that's what you're going to do, because college is not an option. She wasn't against college. It's just that she just knew. She's like, I cannot afford it. She's working 2 jobs. My brother was making me grilled cheese sandwiches and PB&Js and oodles and noodles. So, it just, it was not accessible. Art wasn't popping.
I like to go to museums, and I played the piano. I'm very interested in music. Always would go to concerts, and I like classical music as well as popular music.
First of all, city schools are just way underfunded for so many, because of so many things. But I think it's seen as an extra, and I think that's the way they've always been seen.
I think it's underfunded because, the arts sector is underfunded because they look at it as secondary. So I feel like a lot of schools or a lot of people in leadership think art, music, theater, ceramics, whatever, that they can offer in school. I feel like they just look at it as secondary.
I feel like it's not really valued in my community because I don't really see it much, or it's not something that's major when it comes to trade classes around my school.
Very important because sometimes, many times, people don't know what it means and how art can help, communities grow.
I live close to the art school, Mike. So over in that area, of course, they're doing a lot of stuff with the school, but the arts community that's developed over there over time is starting to do a lot more things within the community. So you start to see a lot more murals pop up in certain neighborhoods, in certain areas. You start to see fun things happening at some of the parks and the playgrounds. You start to see some public art pieces show up in these places. In that way, yes, the community definitely, art is definitely impacting the community. And even have helped certain communities kind of heal and process certain things.
I think for a long time they did, but I've seen that things have changed a little bit now. So we've seen some changes in the last few years in City Hall that started with our former mayor, Pugh, where they changed the art space in the first floor to start to feature more local artists and artists of color inside City Hall. And so it's actually one of the really cool art galleries now, where they switch it out every couple months, where they feature a new Baltimore-based artist and their artwork, and they do shows there. So I think we've gotten better. I think for a long time, that was not the case at all. Overall, we certainly have more room to grow, but, Artscape is one of the biggest events in the country that features arts in Baltimore, and a lot of that does get government support to operate that. And I think, we can do better. Obviously, I think the area that we have really dropped the ball has been in schools. The fact that every school doesn't have a art program or a music program or a theater program or just other ways for our young people to express themselves, I think is a travesty. But I am hopeful that this conversation will continue to get elevated by elected officials. It's something that we view as important and critical to the education of our young people in Baltimore City.
The reason I'm so passionate about it is that when I started really asking students why arts education was important to them, students across the state told me that the reason they loved arts education was it's because it's where they found their family. In arts education classes, they found other kids who thought like them and they could connect to in a way that didn't show up maybe in the rest of their school day.
Arts are important because we all have a creative side. It may not be the best, but it's there. And that ability to touch that part of you helps you be a better person. It helps with creativity. It helps with interpersonal skills and being able to relate to others. The other thing that art gives you that you're not going to find anywhere else, believe it or not, art allows you to touch your emotions in a way that you're not going to touch when you're sitting in front of a computer or when you're counting dollars and cents.
The arts allow students to gain a different perspective of the world around them and the interactions they have with people, their interactions with content that other people are putting out. I think arts education is important for stress relief. I think it's important for allowing students to become comfortable with not always being so pragmatic or focused on doing something the exact way that they're being told to do it.
For me personally, choir for me was my safe place, our choir room, and then my teacher, he made me feel accepted, and so did the other students in the class.
I believe art education is important, especially now with this pandemic where you kind of feel stuck and it feels like every day is just tied into one. I think you definitely need to have some time where you express yourself, whether through the arts and stuff.
Personally, I couldn't imagine a world without art because in the end, art is everything, whether that means you want to design something. Even math can be its own art because it's a different way of expression.
I think it's going to be empty. Like, there is art everywhere, like in education, in government, in day-to-day. Like, if there wouldn't be any art, we won't have apps. We won't have this amazing platform to speak. Like, art needs to be there because art, I think, brings excitement. It brings joy. It brings color. It basically brings out the emotions.
The world without art, man, I don't even know how I would survive. I haven't been sleeping. I'm very tired, but I haven't been sleeping. But the only thing that keeps my sanity is art. But yeah, I think the world would be very, very empty without art.